gave a very concise and detailed information regarding how the problem started and what caused the pollution, and what I'm going to be presenting to you is the consequences of the problems that exist as of today. So basically, the problem, the pollution that is in Sevan has two main impacts. It has had that impact previously, and it's going to have that impact unless something is being done to preserve the Sevan to its initial stages. One of the biggest problems, of course, is health. It has caused a lot of epidemic diseases in people living in the area. And also the next biggest consequence is the economy. The economy of the Gegharkunik province, which is the biggest province where Lake Sevan is located, happens to be one of the poorest economic sections in the country, and with the added pollution, with the lack of fishery, people are going to go see the economy impact by being in more poverty than the rest of the country, and also due to the diseases caused by the pollution, the tourism industry is going to be impacted, which in turn is going to impact the overall economy. So what you see there is the map on the right side is the Gegharkunik province, happens to be the largest province, as I mentioned. However, the people that live in this area have greater poverty than 44% of them live in poverty. And 15% of them live in the utter poverty, meaning that their daily income is less than $1 a day. This information, of course, is gathered by the International Monetary Foundation. It's pretty recent. It's as of 2006. The situation is even worse in the rural areas. 80% of the rural areas have no access to central sewage system. What was designed to be performed during the Soviet times, putting a sewage line, as Arek mentioned, never materialized. So especially in the mountainous and rural areas where they have no access to the road and stuff, the sewage system is lacking 80%. And when you look at the area, the children, the 7% of all the infant deaths are attributed to the diseases that are related to diarrhea. And child mortality is especially high among children who live in these mountainous and rural areas. The collapse of the water infrastructure. So Soviets used some infrastructure there, used some probably poor quality stuff compared to our Western standards, and also the severe winters, the severe temperature extremes have caused that collapse of that water infrastructure, which has resulted in adequate and unsanitary condition for the region. In fact, the lack of sewage system, which is more than 80% in these areas, has contributed to contamination of the drinking water in these areas. And of course, lack of sanitation sector also has amplified the situation even worse. So when we look at the problems and consequences, for all of us who have, I'm sure, we travel to Armenia, we know that when we travel to the villages and towns, their toilets are nothing but a hole that is only a few meters deep in the ground. Normally these holes doesn't have any rigid foundations or walls, so everything gets seeped into the ground. And because they are not really covered properly, they are always smelly, they're dirty. The wastewater, which is a mixture of the untreated sewage system and the water that gets down to flush the waste, mixed together, is normally disposed of in the drainage channels that are outside, very close to their living quarters, very close to the running rivers. And to make matters worse, this drainage water is used for irrigation in their fields, which is not that healthy. And regularly, this area gets very hard rains during springtime, which basically the spring water washes off all that pollution to the rivers, which eventually ends up in Lake Sevan. So consequences of all this, obviously, is very high risk in the soil and the groundwater contamination. Some of these areas have groundwaters that are very close to the surface, and it doesn't take that much for the pollution to get to the groundwater. And the unhealthy conditions are, especially in the schools, in the school toilets that exist all over the place, has created problems for the children. And children get parasites by using these toilets and get sick. Just to give you an idea, I'm sure most of you guys have seen this all over Armenia. These are the conditions of what they call it, their zugarans, or their toilets. Normally they lack running water, and if they do, it's a very unsanitary way of